WNST. Towson, certainly that was for the Ravens fans. For the Buffalo Bills fans, I'm not sure what it was. This guy was a longtime Buffalo Bill. He is a Buffalonian now and has been drafted into all things Bills. Even though he works CBS and calls games, he'll be doing the Jets and the Dolphins this week. He was doing crab cakes this weekend. I wish he would have brought me some beef on weck and some wings in here. 47-3, Steve Tasker. Not a lot to talk about, I guess, tactically in the game from the Bills' perspective, other than sort of picking up the pieces. Look like a bad football team you're going to be watching up there in Buffalo this year, Steve.
Yeah, they've got some issues, no question about it. I think that the main one going into the season was going to be the quarterback, and they spent the entire offseason wrangling to get up in the draft to get him, and then kind of waiting to see if they can get him to get his career to germinate and start to be able to be the guy to take snaps. I think what happened on Sunday in Baltimore will probably, hasten his move onto the field. They wanted to give him time to get acclimated to what the regular season was going to be like. But I think, given what Nate Peterman did Sunday, they'll probably accelerate Josh Allen to get him onto the field. They've got a lot of young players, and some of them in some pretty key spots, not let alone the quarterback. And so, yeah, it looks like it might be a pretty rough year for Buffalo, but there's no doubt that what's on the horizon for them is going to be a lot better than what we saw on Sunday.
I don't think anybody's more closely associated with the Bills this side of Jim Kelly than you. You're there. You've seen it all the losing, the not making the playoffs, and what happened last year getting in. For the people I talked to last week, I don't know that it buys you anything. If I'm a Bills fan, say, great, we made it into some goofy wild card thing. We played 3 hours. Maybe we win. Where are we right now? And do you understand everything they've done from a quarterbacking perspective here in the offseason? I thought the trading of McCarron was a little curious to me, Steve.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit, except that A.J. and Nate Peterman, you watch those guys during camp. Now, Peterman did play better than A.J. did, but they were the same quarterback, same arm strength, same mobility, same type of player. There were a lot of times in training camp you'd flip a coin and there was absolutely no separation between the two. So, to get the draft pick for AJ was probably the thing to do, particularly considering they didn't want to go into the season with 3 quarterbacks on the roster. But that's just the way that it worked out. That's the way those guys played, and they went with the play on the field. I think the quarterback issue is the one that everything points toward Josh Allen for the future, and clearing the deck with AJ and Tyrod Taylor is just one more step in that process.
Steve Tasker joining us here. You can, of course, follow him at Steve Tasker89 out on Twitter. Steve, I found an old picture of you, me, and Jim Kelly at the Super Bowl of 2001. So you and I have been at this a little bit. I shared that last week out on Twitter for Buffalo Week here. But the Peterman thing, what about him was attractive enough to deal McCarron away and play him and start him? Was he really better than McCarron in the preseason?
Yeah, significantly.
Really?
AJ, Peterman, you look at despite what happened on Sunday, Peterman connected on 80% of his passes in the preseason. The only hiccup he had the entire preseason was an interception he threw against Carolina that was a 5-yard pass, and the guy was right where it should have been and banked off the guy's face mask, and he couldn't, the guy turned his head before the ball got there and it boinked up in the air and got picked. The guy was really flawless in the preseason. Now, a lot of times and this is what we saw last year with Peterman, he played awesome in the preseason in 2017. But when he got onto the field, nothing translated onto the field. It looks as though he's one of those guys that he practices great. He works hard at it. He can answer all the questions on the test, but when he gets on the football field, he doesn't seem to be a gamer. And that's the thing that has kind of started to come out with him, because he works really hard to get on the field and earn the trust of the organization. But he can't come through on a game in a regular season, and that's a problem.
Steve Tasker joining us here from Buffalo. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at the Modell Lyric. Checking out John Cusack and their screening Say Anything coming up this week, as well as Steely Dan next month and Kansas in November. There's magic at the Modell Lyric. Check it out at modell-lyric.com. Also, our friends at Sporticulture with the beautiful Ravens and Bills and Terps flowers we had here in the WNST studios. You can learn more at Sporticulture. That's sporticulture.com, and you can ship them anywhere and everywhere, including Buffalo, where Steve Tasker is now. But we'll be moving on throughout CBS's broadcast here over 17 weeks from place to place and town to town. Steve, you leave Baltimore after a 47-point effort where Joe Flacco sees the pine in the beginning of the third quarter. The miracle worker, Lamar Jackson, gets in and gets a half a football under his belt during a week when the Ravens have to go out and play on Thursday night in Cincinnati against what I believe to be an improved Bengals team. And I think the division's a little more open based on what the Browns and the Steelers were doing in the aftermath of our game on Sunday. But for the Ravens and where they are, I think everybody has to stand impressed at Ozzie, at what the team has done, at Joe. I mean, this was a little bit of a mess when you guys were backing into the playoffs 9 months ago and the sky was falling here in Baltimore. Doesn't feel that way after week one, that's for sure.
No, there's no question that Baltimore got it together that second half of last year, going 5-2 down the stretch, and they were even as bad as it was for Joe Flacco and his back in the preseason and trying to struggle through the first half of the season with guys who, he's having trouble finding guys open in the secondary. They were still just a fourth down completion away by Andy Dalton to get into the playoffs, and that's where they're sitting this year. They kind of picked up where they were at the second half of last year. Joe Flacco's health was a big issue last year. He feels a lot better. Crabtree, John Brown, and the rest of the receivers are really going to help Joe. That's a big step. I mean, there's no question your defense is still intact. Being able to bring most of those guys back intact and then add on to the offensive side of the football is a real boost for Joe. And, I think you guys are sitting in a good spot. No question they put it together on opening day, and there's a lot of football to be played, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to score 47 points every week. Still, having the weapons that they do and getting off to the start like that gives them some confidence going forward.
Well, certainly the Buffalo Bills would have been a better organization over the last decade had Joe Flacco been there. He's very underappreciated around here, Steve, and he's probably my favorite all-time Baltimore athlete just for the accomplishments and what kind of guy he is. I find it fascinating that for the last 6 months, and really the last couple of years since he had his knee rolled up on by Hurst in that game a couple of years ago, now 3 seasons ago, he's about as maligned a starting quarterback who's ever won a Super Bowl as there is, and I think everyone's real quick to wash him out of here in the national media over the last 6 weeks was, Lamar Jackson would have been the guy starting in the second half of week one. That certainly is a long, long way away, the notion that Lamar Jackson's going to take over this team and the Ravens are just going to throw Flacco out the side door. That looks to be a long way away after watching both of them play for a half on Sunday.
Yeah, it is a long way. However Joe is appreciated or underappreciated in Baltimore, he's extremely admired and respected around the NFL. He's a difficult quarterback to play against. He's a great thrower of the football. Whatever it is that keeps him from being beloved like other quarterbacks are in their towns, he's overcome it. I mean, the organization, I think, really appreciates him. They know what they've got in Joe Flacco. Certainly, the back injury last year and the knee injury 3 years ago, hurt his ability to play. But when he's in the game and when he's healthy, it's pretty tough to find a better thrower of the football than Joe Flacco. So I agree with you. He is underappreciated in his hometown, but I think he's got it in him to earn back to keep battling through all of that and know that that's kind of his lot in life. I think he's okay with it. He plays well under that pressure, and I think maybe sometimes he plays better under that pressure when he's underappreciated. So I think the Ravens and the organization are in a really good spot starting this season with a healthy Joe Flacco and the defense intact from a year ago, and the new receivers. I think you're going to like Joe Flacco this year, and he's going to go a long way towards getting that city back on his side.
Steve Tasker is our guest. He is Steve Tasker89 out on Twitter. He'll be calling the Dolphins and the Jets this week at CBS. Of course, he was in the booth here on Sunday calling the Bills and the Ravens. He doesn't always call Bills games, just sometimes in the preseason. Always catches a flight back that way. But certainly for Flacco and Lamar Jackson and how this is going to be utilized. It's very nice and clean when Jackson comes in and plays in the second half and gets to run around and do his thing. That's going to be very rare around here. The utilization is going to be what we've seen in sort of that slash role in the first half. I'm fascinated to see as to whether that's ever effective, Steve, or at what point you send it to the junkyard in week 4 or 5 if you've run 4 or 5 or 6 of those plays and none of them net anything. Clearly, you're not going to catch anybody asleep sneaking Lamar Jackson onto the field, and I know the Bills probably rehearsed a little bit of that, but there was some decoy action going on. It's another little wrinkle, but until they kill somebody with that play, that Lamar Jackson comes in and picks up 28 yards or gets a key first down or makes some razzle-dazzle happen, everybody's on the lookout. They know when he's out there that he might be getting the ball.
Yeah, I think when he's out there, at least yesterday, when Lamar Jackson was on the field, he was the focal point of it. So he was going to have the ball in his hands. I don't think there's any question that the Ravens get some benefit out of it because, not knowing specifically, but the teams facing the Ravens are going to have to put some time in their practice schedule to address the Lamar Jackson question of how they're going to use him and what they're going to use him for and what kind of plays they're going to put in. So they do get some benefit out of it for Joe Flacco. Defenses are not going to be as prepared for Joe when they're preparing for Lamar Jackson. And I know it might sound a little bit, like a little minutia to think about the team having to spend some time on it, but it does make a difference, and teams understand that, and that's why I think the Ravens are going to continue with it as long as they feel like getting some benefit from it.
Steve, for you with the Bills and moving forward and where they're going to go here the rest of the way, and you talk about Josh, I don't know that the right time is when you're losing like that, but certainly to get him in there, I don't know at what point they would feel like he's ready and they're not throwing him to the Wolves. I heard so much last week about, they didn't want to put him in against the Ravens defense. Well, I'm like, what, you're going to put Peterman in there instead? Do you expect Josh Allen to be the starter beginning like now, soon?
I'm sure it accelerated their process, no question about it. And it wasn't the same Raven defense in the second half that Josh Allen came in against. It'll be different for him going in, for instance, in their next game against the the Los Angeles Chargers in Buffalo. But I'm sure that that's probably on the table, and they're having that conversation. What they see on the film will tell them some things. Difficult conditions yesterday, or on Sunday anyway, to evaluate exactly how much that affected Peterman. But nevertheless, at some point, if he wants to stay on the field, Nathan Peterman's going to have to play much better than he did, and that's really the bottom line. And if he's unable to do that, there's no doubt that that'll be the time Josh Allen steps on the field. And if the club is convinced that that's not going to happen, I'm sure it'll happen in that moment. So Josh Allen will become the Bills starter.
Lots of great storylines. With the game being so blown out, I told you earlier before we went on the air, I saw the back of your head in the broadcast booth there. I was over in the little Ravens lounge watching Steelers and Browns, watching the Bengals play Indianapolis. It's wonderful having football back, but then you go home on Sunday night, and for anybody that fell asleep after Khalil Mack did all that he did in the first half, the Aaron Rodgers story on Sunday night was a little bit, all the national anthem and all the stuff going on in the country, and every team has its own little drama, but for the best player in the NFL to come back, come off a cart, come back and win a game while a lot of people probably fell asleep on Sunday night, that's an incredible awakening for the NFL in week 1, I think.
Yeah, Khalil Mack was a game wrecker in the first half of that game, and a wounded, limping Aaron Rodgers, it took everything he had to bring the Packers back, and the Bears had a couple of chances even the second half to put that game away, and they couldn't do it. It was when you leave a great player like Aaron Rodgers with an opportunity to do what he did, that's going to happen to you. But it also sets the table for the Packers for the rest of the season. For the Bears for the rest of the season, knowing that teams are going to have a problem with their defense, and it makes their defense a notch better. Mitch Trubisky at the end of the game in the last drive missed some throws that you don't see Aaron Rodgers miss. And, it's things like that. It's those, one or two completions at a key part of the game that give the team the ability to stay on the field that makes Aaron Rodgers so dangerous. He just can't get the ball away from him. And, he showed again last night why he's considered the best in the game. And, the game, that game in Green Bay, Chicago in Green Bay, was something to see. And Aaron Rodgers, it'll be interesting to see how he comes out of that with his knee going forward. But he's a difference maker.
Well, it certainly looked like he was having some trouble, stepping off with the left foot there. Steve Tasker, 8-9 is the way to follow Steve Tasker out on Twitter. You can follow him to MetLife Stadium this week. He'll be calling the Dolphins and the Jets. Dude, I hope you don't get like a 6.5-hour version of a Dolphins game. That was, for the broadcast perspective, that was almost like being a baseball broadcast or something with these rain delays here. But certainly the Dolphins it was a tale of two games for them on Sunday, right?
Yeah, it was. I still haven't even got a chance to watch that game, the Dolphins Titans game. I don't know how you finish a game after starting 7 hours before. That's really, really incredible. I know there's like 6 people in the stands when it finally ended, that's there's no doubt they're going to have some. That's going to be a hangover on that game for both those clubs. They're going to have they're going to struggle to get over that game physically, logistically, and all of that. That was a wild one, and you got to tip your hat for the Dolphins for doing what they did.
We got 3 days to turn it around. We'll be in Cincinnati having some chili and thinking of you. Steve, hope to see you a little later on in the year. I hope you draw a Ravens game here, and we'll stay in touch with you. And hopefully we continue to improve upon what we built here on Sunday. A lot of enthusiasm here for the first time in a long time, Steve. So we'll see you further up the road, man. Always a pleasure.
All right, Nestor, thanks.
Steve Tasker, 8-9, the way to find him out on Twitter and anywhere in Buffalo. Buffalo's the pride of Buffalo, I would say. I'm going to find that old picture of me and Steve and Jim Kelly at the Super Bowl in Tampa 2001. I'll be sharing that out on our social media. You can follow along out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We're out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Listen to what you want, when you want, where you want. No static at all. Just like our friends in Steely Dan and FM who are appearing at the Model Lyric. For my birthday, October 11th, we're going to be in Nashville for my 50th birthday. Big week around here. I'm giving a little Tony Robbins speech on Wednesday night. You'll want to tune in to our Facebook Live and check that out as I'm doing a little Date with Destiny thing later on in the week. Luke and I will be in Cincinnati on Thursday night for full coverage of all things Bengals and the Ravens. If there's any breaking news, you'll get that first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. I'll be checking in. Luke will be checking in from Cincinnati. This Sunday Sports Voice, now heard on Thursdays, the official pregame show of WNST this Thursday as we get ready for Cincinnati. Last but never least, the morning newspaper delivers to your email inbox free of charge each and every morning. Just sign up once. You get it at 7 a.m. every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Go out to jwb5k.com. That's the John W. Brick Foundation big 5K run and festival they're having in Timonium. That is on my birthday. That's October the 14th. That's 5 weeks from Sunday. Letting the gray beard grow in here on the Facebook Live. Nasty at WNST.net finds me, and we are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.